Before we begin our devotional reading this morning, let's reflect back on the three principles we covered in Galatians chapter 5 verses 22 through 26 and Galatians 6 verses 7 through 10. Here we learned that we must make every effort to please God, to resist temptations, and to become more and more like Jesus. And as we all know, godliness is certainly of more value than worldliness, for it holds a promise for both the present life and the life to come. The psalmist in Psalm 1 and 6 speaks to this subject with, "The Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to ruin." Now in our devotional this morning, we will see the results of the three principles in action. First, Paul sees himself as an athlete who has finished his race. He has crossed the finish line. He did not quit. Now, satisfied that he has reached his goal, he joyfully anticipates receiving the winner's crown, the crown of righteousness. Now let's read our devotional, 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 5 through 8, titled, "The Crown of Righteousness." Beginning with verse 5, but you be watchful in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Finally, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day. And not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing. And that loved his appearing, of course, that's referring to the second coming of Christ. Often we get tangled up in our day-to-day activities. Paul likens these activities, daily activities, to a race and encourages us to keep our sights on the prize and not merely on the task at hand. The Christian life is not easy. Paul describes his life as a battle. That is, there were times when he struggled, and only through perseverance could he continue. And we find in Romans chapter 15, verse 30, we learn that this great apostle had to struggle at times to be faithful to God. And no wonder Paul faced persecution, misunderstanding, betrayal, and death threats. Paul's Christian life was anything but easy, yet he persevered. Paul's faith in God was not proven by beginning the race, rather by enduring the race to the finish. Now looking back, Paul can see that he has fought the good fight, and he knows the Christian life is not a 100-yard dash. It is a marathon, and most often an obstacle course. And so it is no wonder we often get tangled up in our day-to-day activities. However, Paul likens these activities to a race and encourages us to keep our sights on the prize and not merely the task at hand. Our success in the race is not determined only by how well we begin, but also how well we end. Paul was coming to the end of his ministry, and he did what all of us do as we age. We look back briefly before looking forward to heaven. Now let's tie all this together. As we access our lives, these truths assess our lives, these truths are more and more obvious. That is, only what is done for Christ will last. Paul confirms this time and time again in the Scriptures. And not only will it last, it will also be rewarded with a crown of righteousness. Now there is much satisfaction in finishing something we have begun. Paul rejoiced that he had not only begun the race, but he had also finished it. And his prize was a robust faith in God and a life filled with God's powerful presence, symbolized by the crown of righteousness, that special reward given to those who serve God faithfully. And now in closing, in our race through life, we are met with unexpected twists and turns. Life does not always cooperate, and sometimes we do not react to turmoil properly, which makes our journey a little more painful. So we must keep our eyes focused on the finish line, not on the troubles and trials, pains and heartaches that Satan throws in our path. Using Paul as our model, we should live out life in such a way that we can one day conclude, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Amen and thank you.